Man, I've got it in my profile on LinkedIn. If you want advice, mentorship, contact me. It's free. I will make time for you. I'm involved in, I've been involved in nonprofits for 10 years now. I was blessed to be a part of Trigger's Toys with my college buddy, Brian Townsend, who is, if you don't know him and his organization, look him up. They're absolutely amazing organization, amazing dude. Worked a little bit in prison education. Didn't work that very long because it was just demands were too much for me. It was too long to drive, so I couldn't. I was traveling internationally, but now I'm a part of an organization called Redeemed Ministries. It's a tough subject, but it's involved in the stopping of sexual and human trafficking.
It's a tough subject, but it's not a not hot topic. Let's put it that way. There should be more conversations about this.
It should be it's about to become the second largest illegal industry in the world. It's about to pass up illegal arms. It's about to be second to only drugs.
Personal level, connecting with people, to people, and for people. My next guest, the one and only Jeff Peeples. He's got an amazing story, and I can't wait to hear all about it. Jeff, I know your formal title that I've looked up so far is freelance writer, podcast host, podcaster, expert in safety, manufacturing products. I even added some things of my own: world traveler, connoisseur of knowledge, history, and I would even give you the name, The Professor. So with that said, Jeff, welcome to the show, and
thank you.
And introduce yourself for us.
My niece, my niece calls me Indiana Jones, Uncle Indiana Jones, because I go to the crazy places. But yeah, the podcast writing stuff is not former. That's definitely current. What I do currently, it's one of the things I do, and a couple of projects I've been working on for the last year, I would say, to be quite honest. It's all part of a media organization called Ameda Media. Ameda Media is put my two nieces' names together, Emery and Ada. So Ameda Media, and under that is the Mission Zero podcast, which is a industry based podcast, safety and environmental, and also the ESG subject, environmental social governance. That's a big thing in companies. And What If It Didn't Happen podcast, which is a history podcast, and also my writings, which I write at Substack under the Practical Pragmatist. So yeah, all I guess we'd say media type things, but it takes us some time. But I was reading about history anyway. I was studying history anyway, so why not put it to some sharing use?
Totally. And I actually said formal introduction.
Oh, okay.
Not formal. So
formal. Like, now, bro.
That's actually what you're doing right now. But yeah. So let me ask you, Jeff, how'd you get into this media stuff?
Well, I in my past company, I had shared an office with some people that were doing some media work, doing some podcast work. I got to learn firsthand how important in now when attaching media to your business, your business needs a social media aspect. It sets you up, as a subject matter expert. It helps you get to know people in the industry. It helps you to advertise yourself. It helps to distinguish yourself as a subject matter expert. And podcasts are almost free advertising for you and your guest, right? And so I chose that as a subject matter expert. I've always wanted to be a writer. When it comes to the Practical Pragmatist, writing has always been a passion. I've had an idea for a novel for about a decade now, and I've been working on that slowly. But what I wanted to do here was more long. The Practical Pragmatist is more long form writing. It's not article writing. It takes pretty deep dives into subjects. I dove into a little bit after my hero Colin Powell died. I wrote an article on that, and I've written articles on school shootings and being mindful and thankful. And right now I'm working on one about talking, talking more, being more conversational, getting deeper with people, as opposed to just having all surface level conversations as something we need in society. And the third one is just for damn fun, man. The third one, I was doing a podcast. I listen to a ton of podcasts. I read history hours and hours every week. And I was sitting there going, what if I did a history podcast? And what would I do it as? Just doing a standard history podcast. I'm not going to compete with Dan Carlin. If you ever heard of him, he's the hardcore history #1 history podcast in the world. It is fantastic stuff. But if you're not into history, it is going to be a snooze fest for you. If you are into history, it's going to be invigorating. But I decided, like, okay, number one, I want to take the Mike Rowe approach, meaning a little bit a lot shorter and more effective. So 20 to 30 minutes is where I'm looking for my podcast. But I wanted to take something in particular there and focus in on. And what I'm focusing in on is picking small, and this has always interested me personally, picking small, little, tiny events that change world history. Like, I mean, the smallest thing. And so my first one is called the Stoned Oracle Who Saved Democracy, and it's essentially talking about the Battle of Thermopylae and Leonidas, which we all know from 300, right? The movie 300, but you don't know the details. And Leonidas only went there because a oracle told him that either Sparta would fall or he would die. And he knows if he goes there to beat the Persians at the gap at Thermopylae, he would die. So he went there to save his country, only because this stoned oracle, and I say stoned because, and a lot of people don't know, the oracles in ancient Greek were all LSD'd out. They were using drugs and different things, and that's how they came up with their mysticism. It wasn't known as, they didn't know that, like people in the day didn't know that, but now we do know that. Like, right, that's how they came up with these crazy ideas. But that's that small little event of that person, the stoned girl telling Leonidas this prophecy, led to democracy being saved and the Western civilization being saved. So it's a small little event, and I find that very interesting. The next one's going to be on the son of Genghis Khan and how his drunkenness saved Europe. That's interesting, and it's true. So it's going to be cool. But that's how I got into the media. I love it. It's just basically media is almost an entirely passion project, almost, except for Mission Zero, which is obviously industry and work related as well.
Yeah. So speaking of history, Jeff, how'd you get into all this stuff? Let's go back to where are you from?
Well, originally grew up in very rural Georgia. I would name you the place, but really, you would never hear of this place called Elberton, Georgia, specifically Dewey Rose. That's our closest post office. The only two people famous from there were Meriwether Lewis of Lewis and Clark. He grew up there, and then now all the way to Miko Hardman in the NFL, who I grew up and played with his father and uncle. And went to Georgia Southern University for a couple of years. Met a girl, followed her to Texas Tech University, and that worked out swimmingly. Because following someone from state to state always works out. But I don't regret it at all. Tons of my lifelong friends are from there.
You met a true love in Texas Tech, right?
Oh, I did, man. Well, the state of Texas, and I state of Texas, and I love Georgia, and I'm proud. I grew up there. I go back; it still has that feeling of home that you go back to. But Texas is it for me because it just fit. It fit me perfectly well, and things happen for a reason, and I'm glad all that happened because about 2 years ago, Chris, I passed living more of my life in Texas than Georgia. So I'm in now. I'm fish. I can no longer say I'm a transplant. Damn it, I'm a Texan now. So
I hear you. So Georgia Southern, what was that like?
So I had an incredibly tumultuous teenage years. My dad took off and left us, and my mom had some she had some mental health issues through those years, and was in and out of an institution, and really wasn't
And is
there
it
for
just
me.
you, or do you have brothers and sisters?
I had a brother, but he was already my brother had already graduated high school, or was right at the end of it, and graduated. So in my high school years, I was almost exclusively on my own. I lived by myself for quite a while, and nobody even knew it, because it was just, no one would have guessed it, I guess. But at the time, you don't know what's normal and what's not. But yeah, so I did my best to get into a college. I was extremely lucky that my best friend's mother was the high school guidance counselor. And if people from big high schools or big schools don't know, in small towns, the guidance counselor is God and every Buddha and Jesus and everybody else. So she helped me to apply for colleges and get into Georgia Southern University, which, I had a very poor academic profile. I graduated high school towards the bottom of my class. I did poorly on the SAT because I did not give a damn. But during between my junior and senior in high school, I joined the Army Reserve, and went to basic training and became extremely disciplined, and my life flipped. I became a doer, a goal accomplisher, and so my mission was to catch up on education. So I killed myself in college. I did not drink. I didn't have one drink of alcohol at Georgia Southern University. I went to bed every day. I worked my job, and then I studied, and that was it. Well, I finished 2 years at Georgia Southern with a 4.0 GPA.
Wow.
After graduating high school with a 2.6, I think. And so I went to Georgia Southern, graduated, met the girl, and then applied to college. I actually applied and was accepted to A&M. I chose Texas Tech at the time. A weird reason. Texas Tech was the first college to offer Mandarin as a language, and I wanted to study Mandarin because I foresaw China becoming important. Pat myself on the back. This was 1996 or 7. This was 1997. So now A&M's fully degreed in Mandarin, but back then they weren't. But I went to, and that's how I got to Texas Tech. Georgia Southern was to give it a Texas comparison, it's like a Texas State or Sam Houston level school. We actually played them in football, Sam Houston. But yeah, it's that level of school. But I wanted the big college experience. I wanted to go to big football games and big basketball games, and go to school with 20,000 people as opposed to 6,000 or 7,000 people. But I love Georgia Southern. I had some really great professors there, so I love my time there.
Yeah, I find it fascinating that you had to go all the way to West Texas to learn Mandarin.
Oh, no shit. And it's funny, man. Everybody laughed. Like, at the time, everybody was, I would tell them what am I studying, what language am I studying. So I was there at the time where international business went from business degree with international emphasis to international business degree. And with that international business degree, you had to have, I think, 5 classes of a foreign language, which made it a minor. And so we all took those classes. We all had to have a class, and we were the first class to graduate. And I think there was like 6 of us because it was 2 years in. But yeah, I mean, look, it had a great program. The guy teaching me from Shanghai was extremely good. He was extremely detail oriented. Now, people ask me, can I still speak it? I'm like, yeah, it's been 1999 was my last class, and I can still impress an old Chinese person, but that's about it. I don't conduct business, as much as business as I've done in China. I cannot conduct business in Mandarin, but I can pleasantries, question.
So do you think that this avenue of going down to Mandarin really kind of maybe sparked some of the history piece of you? I'm trying to wonder when that history piece came up in you.
That history I was born with. I had it from the time I was a little kid, man. It has never left me. We were very poor growing up, and this was the 80s, and somebody came by our house selling encyclopedias, and some of the younger people are going to be blown away by that if they listen to this podcast. But he was selling encyclopedias, right? And in those encyclopedias, there was an entire section that was probably 50 pages long on U.S. history. And I started looking at it, and I was begging my dad to buy it. It was like $260, and that was just not a possibility for my dad. And people, again, that's being poor.
That's a lot of money though back then.
It's a lot of money to just shell out for some encyclopedias. And so the guy's walking out the door, and he turns around and he goes, we can do this in 6-month installments, 6-month payment plan. You just write the checks out every month and post date them, and we can do that. My dad went, okay. And I wore that damn encyclopedia out. I wore it completely out. Chris, buddy, you're going to laugh, but I had memorized the presidents in order.
Wow.
I could name you every president in order, and I could do that in the 4th grade, and I can't do that now.
Wow.
But my love of history has always been there. My dad shared that interest, so it probably spurred a little bit from there. But now I'm not a history lover. I'm a full-on psychopath now.
That's hilarious.
I love it. I love it. I'll go anywhere to see something that's historically significant. I love it.
Yeah. So yeah, that kind of breeds into the rest of your life, if you will. Mm-hmm. You left Texas Tech. What happened next?
Well, I went down to South America to try my hand at archaeology. That was my first stint at that. I went down and worked on a site in Bolivia, around the Bolivia-Peruvian border. It's now in a lot of alien documentaries. No one had ever heard of it before then. It was called Puma Punka. It's down the border. It's an interesting place. It has some incredible stonework that is most people would look at the time period and think just impossible, which brings in the ancient alien type people from History Channel. But that's just our ego, our thinking that ancient people couldn't do amazing things. They could. They learned how to do things. If you take a focused mind, you'd be surprised what you could do. But I went down there for a while.
How long were you there?
About a year. And then I was
you leave Texas Tech and you're like, I got this Mandarin degree. And what else degree did you get? What was your degree? So you get this international business degree, and all of a sudden I want to be an archaeologist.
Yeah. So I went down there and dug in the dirt for quite a few months and saw a few of the countries, and as well while I was down there, did a little bit of vagabonding around. And then I was in a position where when you sign up for the reserves, you sign up for 4 years active plus 2 inactive. And I was in my inactive years, right? And I was going to sign back up for a full, because I was going to try to make it 20 years in the Army. And then Afghanistan happened. And then 9/11 happened. So deployment happened. And so I came back, did my deployment, started working different sales jobs for years, man. I mean, it was nothing to write home about. I've shared this publicly on my Instagram, but towards the end of my 20s, I fell deep into depression and anxiety and let it conquer me pretty well. And so I didn't really there was no movement towards an end career there. There was no, a lot of people had their vision in mind by then. I did not have my vision in mind by then. I fell into, what the hell am I going to do? I became a victim of, paralysis by analysis, worrying about missing out or not accomplishing things and never actually starting anything. So eventually got into working for an oil company that made finished products like hydraulic oils and motor oils and things like that, and learned an incredible amount from the guy that ran that company. That was called North American Lubricants. I was out on the West Coast, and that's when I became kind of out of my 8 or 10 year funk, what I would call the depression years, and started to ascend. And I got a job there, and then a similar company called me in Texas and wanted me for a bigger position. And that's when I came back. I think that's probably around the time I met you. When I moved to Dallas and started working there. It was wonderful. I met a mentor who was the CEO of that company, who is still very much in my life. And I can't, I could thank him for a lifetime for all he's taught me and done for me, and it wouldn't be enough. And from that point, he left the company. It was called Aurora Petroleum. He bought into a company called Ringer's Gloves, safety glove company that made heavy duty safety gloves for oil field workers. And he called me up and he said, look, he goes, this is the company I'm invested in it. I'm the CEO of it. I'm going to need an international sales director, but I need you in Houston. And I said, I'm packing as we speak. Like, I can be, if you really want me to, I'll be there tomorrow. Like, I'll finish tonight. Like, that's how desperately I wanted to keep working for my mentor, who was bringing out the best in me. And so I went down there. 2 months later, I was on a plane to Argentina, and I spent 6 years procuring and relationships globally. I worked in the oil fields and damn near everywhere there is an oil field. I've been to Alaska. I've been to the southern tip of Argentina. I've been to the depths of Russia. All over the Middle East, just about Africa. 11 countries in Africa now. So I spent those years doing that. And of course, I would jump off vacations and excursions from those trips.
Sure.
I would fly into Singapore for work, but then I'd go up to Nepal and spend a week there for my vacation, because at that point, Nepal becomes a very cheap trip. Yeah. So that's what I did. He left. A few years later, he left. I stayed with the company a few years beyond him, and then about 5 years ago, I was asked to come on board to a company called Tomahawk Safety. I helped found Tomahawk. I designed all the products at Tomahawk. That was the first foray into product design. So I spent years doing that, building Tomahawk. Tomahawk launched. They were just barely a year or so into it when COVID hit. And, the management were incredibly good, but they were their entire history was medical. Like, everybody in there, all of my investment team were all medical guys, and they had started and sold and built medical companies. And so Tomahawk slowly became a medical company. We were actually, we started at one point, I think we had 700 employees. We were making medical gowns in the United States during COVID. We were making hundreds of thousands a week. And we did that. And then now Tomahawk it's Tomahawk Medical instead of Tomahawk Safety. So I divested myself from Tomahawk, and now I'm going completely on my own with the new company, Sentinel Safety, which I've been working on for quite a few months now.
Well, it's quite the journey. I don't know if you knew this, but back when I was in college, my senior year, I actually left, and I didn't leave, but actually went to check out the reserves as well.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So it's like, all I remember is you guys were going to give me like $7,500, and I got to give you so many weekends a month and a year.
Yeah.
And so I got a question about that. What did, other than the discipline piece about the Army Reserves, where'd they take you? What'd they teach you? What'd you gain from that outside of just that discipline piece?
Well, I mean, what you learn, in the Army, and it's, there's what you learn in basic, and then there's the rest of the career, right? It's kind of like watching Full Metal Jacket. There's the basic training, and then there's the rest, right? And Full Metal Jacket, you learn basic training, you learn discipline. You learn how to work as a team. You learn that everything's better if you work together. You get a big emphasis on that. Basic training is an entire break you down and build you back the way they want you. They break you down as an individual, build you back as a team. And the Army's not free market. It's not capitalism. It's total communism. I mean, it's not like that. So I learned discipline. I learned work ethic. I learned work ethic from my brother as well at the time, who was working 3 jobs and just doing insane amount of work at the time and building his life from nothing. And the Army, I think I'd say the discipline, the work ethic, teamwork, service. One thing, if you believe in a God, if you don't, it's a very good thing to believe there are something bigger than yourself. I think people that have a lot of mental health issues believe that you are the God and you are the biggest thing out there. There's nothing bigger than you. And I think that's where people get wrapped in their own head and go dive deep into depression. I know that's what happened to me in my 20s, and that's how I dug deep. But the Army helps you realize that there's something bigger than you, and that's this country. Yeah. That's the service. And just like Christianity makes you realize, or religion, period. I'm not going to just say Christianity, to realize there's something bigger than you out there. And I think that's a great way to live life. And I think that's maybe the most important thing our Army taught me.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. You mentioned a mentor. This guy obviously had a major effect on you. Talk about like the importance of this mentor, and just kind of some things that you took away from this guy. And, how do you find a mentor as well?
Well, I didn't find this mentor. The mentor found me. It was a company called O'Rourke Petroleum, a great company, full of great people there. They do fuel, lubricants, and they sell to all the oil field companies, all the industrial places, and that's what they do. And they hired me and offered me a job to come back, and I was extremely happy with my job. I live in Scottsdale, Arizona. I worked on the West Coast, so I was extremely happy with it. But my buddy who was actually in the Army and deployed with me told me that, hey, they're trying really hard to interview you. Give them the courtesy. And I went and interviewed with them in Houston at the time, and it was the first time I'd ever interviewed. And if you're older, if you're in your 30s, maybe it happens in your 20s, but it was my first interview where I didn't need a job. That's a different thing, man. That is a really great position to be in, is interviewing without having no desperation there, right? So I interviewed, had an offer on the table that night. It was more than I would have ever asked for. It was just a great job. It was a step up in responsibility and experience and pay and everything. Well, I had met very briefly the CEO at the time. He came in on the interview, asked 2 questions, and that was it. And but I got to know him at O'Rourke. At O'Rourke, as I was doing really well. We started communicating a little bit more, and I told him I got to know him in a little bit, and so I wrote out a new job, an entire job description for a new position at O'Rourke. And I told him I wanted to talk to him about it. So what I did was I wrote out a 7-page job description for this job I wanted, and sent it to him. And 2 weeks later, we talked about it. 2 weeks after that, I was in that new role, reporting directly to him. This guy's name's Mush Khan, Kahn. If you want to follow him on LinkedIn or something, he's there. His story is pretty incredible too, Chris. He's an English-born Indian who played college football at LSU. I'm not kidding. He is. That's really his story. It is pretty remarkable. But what can I say about him? He's actually, you take all these things you hear about great leaders, and he's certainly all of those things. He cared, number one. He put you before everything else. He put you before business. He put you before the bottom line. He procured you as a person. He looked for my strengths and developed those. He was supportive in every way. He saw if you were trying, you were on his side. He brought out, I guess I could say, put it simply, he was incredible at bringing out the best in an individual. And awesome. He did not do it through the whip. He did it through other encouragement. He would actually procure you as a person. And he's been there ever since. He's been my mentor, my big brother type. Anytime I need advice, he's been there. So he's been entirely important in my life, and still is. He's very much in my life, and he's now an advocate for. He has. He's left the big corporate world, and he has his own company called Alchemy, where he does like new age manufacturing here in Houston. If you ever get the chance, he'll give you a tour. He does like all the what is it called, 3D printing type manufacturing stuff. He's
Okay.
all in that, and he's a big advocate. He's for repatriation. I don't know if repatriation is the word, but bringing manufacturing back to the United States.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Yeah,
Should be a big deal.
Oh, he's a big deal into that. He's really into that, and I see it, and it's awesome to see. So, yeah, having a mentor, man, I missed out. I love my dad. My dad loves me, but he was never around for that. He was never down for that, so I didn't have that. My brother was more of a example by work. He worked his ass off, so he was a great example that way. But as far as having true mentors, that's really the difference between, in a lot of cases, between successful people and non-successful people is, what were your parents, was your dad a mentor, was your mom a mentor, or, and if you're not, you're way behind and you need somebody in life. And my article about Colin Powell was, I'm over 40 now. It's time to be a mentor. And and we talk about heroes, and everybody's looking for heroes. Everybody's looking for help. Everybody's looking for someone to pay attention to them. Switch that around. If you want real growth in life, if you want real change in life, go be those things for someone else.
Yeah, go serve somebody.
Go serve. If you want out of your own head, if you want out of depression, it's so funny. And I tell people the story because it is funny. The day I realized how to get out of depression, I was at somebody's house. It was at a Christmas, or I don't even know who they were, to be honest with you. But it was in the bathroom, and yes, I was on the toilet, and it was something, one of those inspirational things, and it said, if you really want to feel better, if you're having a bad day, go help someone else. And ever since then, service, man. I've got it in my profile on LinkedIn. If you want advice, mentorship, contact me. It's free from me. I will make time for you. I'm involved in, I've been involved in nonprofits for 10 years now. I was blessed to be a part of Triggers Toys with my college buddy, Brian Townsend, who is, if you don't know him and his organization, look him up. They're absolutely amazing organization. He's an amazing dude. Worked a little bit in prison education. Didn't work that very long because it was just, demands were too much for me. It was, too long of drives, and I was traveling internationally. But now I'm a part of an organization called Redeemed Ministries. It's a tough subject, but it's involved in the stopping of sexual and human trafficking.
It's a tough subject, but it's not a not hot topic. Let's put it that way. There should be more conversations about this.
It should be it's about to become the second largest illegal industry in the world. It's about to pass up illegal arms. It's about to be second to only drugs. It is
and that's probably just the parts that we know about.
That's what we can conjure up and figure out.
That's the sad part. Yeah. And it's sad to just think about that's just been going on for so long.
Yeah. And it's getting worse. It's getting worse.
What is the Redeemed Ministries doing? Talk about what that is and kind of how you're involved in that.
So Redeemed, I got involved in it from an organization called Red M. Red M is led by a guy named David Reed. He's the vice president of marketing and technology for NOV. So, a very, very important person and name in the oil and gas industry, right? He's vice president of the fourth largest oilfield service company in the world. And we sat down. He came in for an interview on the Mission Zero podcast, my podcast, and we spent probably 30 minutes talking about oil and gas, and then we spent 15 or so minutes talking about that. And you could just feel his passion in that. He's a very spiritual man. He's a incredible guy to hear talk. If you want to listen to it's David Reed. He's my third episode. He's a Scottish dude, tall, imposing guy, but it's the sweetest human being you'll ever meet. But he's incredibly, he and his wife both are incredibly passionate about it. And Red M is an organization that's designed to raise money for and bring attention to a few different nonprofits around the subject of human and sexual slavery and human trafficking, right? So I got to talking to him about it, and you know, we looked at it, and I thought, okay, well, how can I get involved in this? How can I help? Well, it's by the business side of it. They Redeemed Ministries is a couple. They have an entire program. Okay, they rescue women from this, and then they take them through a 2 to 3 year process of redemption.
Hmm.
And it involves everything. It involves therapy, which is by far the most needed, because I went to a class last Saturday, all day long, just learning about the mental aspect of it, and how damaged people are, and how hard it is to help them. And the tough part is that you're not going to help everybody. Some people are damaged beyond repair, and it's just, you have to live with that as being involved in this. But they take you through an entire process. They have a home where they live. They begin at a certain point to slowly gain responsibilities on their own, doing things, but eventually we want them into a vocation, right? We want them into taking care of themselves, a vacation for themselves, and blah blah blah. Well, that's where my job comes in now. They are now getting to the point where ladies are getting ready to hit the real world. I'm going out there and finding companies that will give them a chance. The biggest barrier, a lot of people don't know this, but and I didn't know this. David told me this. I didn't know this. What they do is they force you. It's a scam. It's a trap scam. So they'll pick a girl. They'll find a vulnerable girl with a bad parenting situation, a bad home situation, and they will begin to groom her, or as they call it, boyfriend her. They'll take a guy. He'll be a handsome young man, and he'll take them out to really nice dinners and things that they had never had before, and the grooming starts. And so once that grooming starts and they get to a certain point, they send them out there, but they purposely get them arrested. And then they'll go bail them out. And the reason they get them arrested is, now, young lady, you're 19 years old and you have a prostitution conviction in your record. Go ahead and try to get a job with a prostitution record on your record. It's incredibly difficult. So my job is to go out there and find companies and industries that will give them a chance. It's much easier to find the non-violent females jobs than it was to find violent male felons jobs. But cheers to Slumber J. They're giving it a shot as well. Bless them for that. But it's hard to get people to do it, because it is a risk on their part. It's their business. It's a risk. Yeah. But that's what my job is going to be. I'm going to help them there. I'm going to help them. They're going to start their own business. I'm advising on how them to start a business where they're going to develop kind of a farmer's market almost business, where you're going to have several different nonprofits come in where these ladies work on different things. And I'm in the textile industry, so I'm right now sorting through how I'm going to build part of my business there. I'm pretty sure what I'm going to do is buy some machinery, set it up, have some product finished here by them. Like, in other words, bring it in almost finished, have them sew labels on and things like that here in the United States. It's to give them a life. Get them into give them into a regular life, so they can function in society like a normal person.
Yeah, have some ownership over something for once. Like I'm a human being now.
Yeah, I'm part of this society. I'm taking care of myself. I don't need other people.
And nobody's out to get me here. I can imagine.
I mean, somebody's out to get them. One of the girls. There's a risk. There's a risk when we talked about it, and we try to keep them out from behind counters, because there's a risk of running into an old John.
Oh wow!
And it happened to one of them a few months ago.
That situation.
An old John came into her work, and these people, like I said, they're. I hate talking about it the way I talk about it, because it almost sounds like it's tantalizing. but it is what it is, and they're triggered very easily. They can make a lot of progress, triggered very easily to things, and they could go from all this progress just crashing back down with one terrible trigger.
Yeah, I mean, that's, think about addiction in general, right? It's just trauma, right? It's
Trauma.
trauma-based stuff that keeps coming back up as love.
Yeah, and trauma, and it's funny you mentioned trauma. That's fantastic you did, because that was a big part of my education in this. And at our organization, we don't treat the behavior; we treat the trauma that causes it. We're looking at that because there's nothing you can do about the behavior. You want to try to treat the trauma, and the guys, the couple that has this organization, they'll tell you you'll never get rid of the trauma. The trauma is there to the end of life. You just got to figure out a way to help them deal with it.
Yeah, and Jeff, those are big T's. Those aren't little T's. Those are big traumas.
Huge. I tell people all the time, man, if you grew up in a home with two parents in a decent neighborhood, parents that paid attention to you, loved you, you are shockingly lucky, because there's so many people who are behind the eight ball and stop looking down on them. Damn it! I mean, because you were born on third base. These people were born on at the batter's box with a 2-0 count or 0-2 count.
Yeah,
it's I mean, it's amazing how bad some of these people's life situations are, because you got to remember the whole point. These ladies, they were picked because they already had a bad situation. They fell into it because they were already not loved. They were already not cared for. They were already abused in a lot of cases. So these ladies have been through an entire life of just completely being crapped on by every person in their life, and in trust and trauma. And you're right. It's an incredibly difficult thing to make, but you know what? It happens. I mean,
yeah.
like I tell people, I'm like, I said, you realize this is Maya Angelou's story, and she went on to, become the poet laureate of the United States, right? And so it's not a death sentence. It's not a death sentence, but
it is going to take work.
It's going to take work, and somebody's got to do the damn work, and I'm going to do the damn work. And there's, believe me, there is a lot of wonderful people doing the damn work. I mean, this isn't a very this problem isn't a very seen problem. Drugs is easy to talk about. The abuse of women is not. So for that reason, not a lot of people get involved in it. It's tough.
Right.
And so I knew I could, and that's why I did. That's why I chose it. I knew I could.
So if there's folks that are listening to the podcast and they're thinking, hey, I'm a business owner, I've got some space to hire some of these people, can they reach out to you, or do they need to go to Red M, or would you be a great place to start?
They can contact me. I mean, my phone number is 214-907-2373. Contact me directly. I don't have a redeemed email, but jpeeps77, jpeeps77 @gmail is my personal email. They can email me there for any kind of help at all. I mean, there's so many different avenues to help in this type of work, and it needs work, and it needs help, because, like I said, it's not a very high profile problem in America, but it's a big problem. And despite that, like it doesn't matter how much it's seen on the news, it's a monster problem in America.
It is. And like I said, I personally don't think it's talked about enough, in my own opinion. So kudos to what you're doing there. You talked about Tomahawk Safety, and that kind of turned into Tomahawk Medical. And now you're Sentinel. So, what is Sentinel, and, who are you trying to connect with Sentinel?
So Sentinel Safety is essentially what, kind of similar to the, thing I did with Tomahawk. It's, Tomahawk it started with a focus on safety gloves, which I knew extremely well at this point. And I had designed the gloves and put them out there. We had some great success, some great companies. Sentinel Safety is more of a textile company. We've developed a fire-resistant clothing. I'm working with a company out of Lesotho, Africa, to build these products. They have a method and a product that's better than anything, and so far, in the market. The response to the product has been unbelievable. We've got a product that's softer, breathes better, and fits better and lasts longer. So it's kind of like I'd almost have to screw up at this point to have something so good into the market. So I'm going out there. I'm trying to offer an advanced technology, a better product for people in the oil field to wear. Oil field people, refineries, utility companies, they all have to wear clothing that's resistant to fire, resistant to arc flash, which is sparks and different in electrocutions, right? They have to be resistant to that. And so that's legal. They have to wear that. So that's the products I'm doing. I'm just trying to build a much better one than I have. And so that's what I'm looking to do. And we'll slowly develop over time more and more safety products. I'm working on an electrolyte powder as well right now that called Tactical Hydration. That'll be coming out early next year.
Okay. So for those of us that aren't in the oil and gas industry, what is it exactly that they're wearing that you guys are producing?
So they're wearing, oil and gas guys, I'm sure in Texas you've seen them. They're wearing coveralls.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So that's it. You just don't. They look. As appearance, from an outsider, they don't look any different than any other coverall, but they are. They are much more expensive, much thicker, and they will burn at a several exponential rates slower than any normal textile would. And that's just, exactly what it is. It's to protect from flash fires, which you have all over the oil and gas industry. There's flames and things going to protect you, and it rarely happens. But when it does, you want somebody wearing fire resistant clothing to protect the body. Because usually, if it's a really good one, you'll be able to put the fire out before it burns your skin. And that's really what you're going for. So if, and also it's going to be bigger than that. It's going to be a total textile company. I have fire resistant blue jeans, pullover shirts, things like that, hoodies, things like that. That's going to be developed, beanies. I'm even going to have down jackets and vests, which is, they're really popular out there. So
you're just basically taking what these guys are wearing already and basically turning it into a fire resistant, legal clothing.
Oh yeah. I mean, and what I'm trying to do is make fire resistant clothing as comfortable and as cool as possible. And we have a product called the Zephyr. We tested it at a major oil company, and the guy responded back. He goes, "Dude, it's like the air just comes straight through it." And I went, "You don't know how happy it makes me to hear you say that, because that's the entire point. You protect people from the fire, but in the oil field, these heavy clothing, they lead. It's 110 degrees outside. They lead to heat issues, heat stress, heat exhaustion, and sometimes heat stroke. So let's go from preventing fires. Let's also include preventing heat related injuries."
Nice. Interesting. And so if I've got oil and gas, I'm a purchaser, someone out there, I can still reach out to you for these products as well.
Yes, absolutely. The website is coming soon. I don't have the website up yet. We officially launch in the middle of June. The production is being it's on its way already. Actually, it's on a ship container. My first stocking of inventories is on its way. We're already producing for a couple of companies, shipping direct to them. I ship direct to customers. They can contact me. More than happy to do testing samples out there for anybody. I don't need to go on a long sales pitch. The feedback from their employees will be that. And the great thing about it, Chris, is I'm able to be competitive. I'm competitive. I'm not cheap, but I'm competitive enough. And I'm close enough to where a fantastic improvement in workwear is great. It is worth the price. It's worth the difference. But the big thing is in the oil industry is, in every downturn in the oil and gas industry, people leave because they have families, they have children. They cannot do this roller coaster ride where they have a job for 3 years and then don't have a job at all for 7 months. And so a lot of people left. Every single downturn, people leave permanently. So they went from having an abundance of workers to now competing for labor. Oil companies are competing for labor now, which is a new thing for them. So having things like great PPE, which is what we call it, personal protective equipment, that got put into mask and other things, but we call it that. This is PPE category as well. Uh, that's part of it. I was talking to another big, huge oil field service company, and the purchaser, who is the safety people push great stuff. The purchaser tries to beat them back on price, and the guy was like, we got to compete for good employees now. It's just something we got to offer them. We got to offer them good equipment. We've got to take care of these employees, because they're not disposable. They'll just go somewhere else if you don't give them good equipment and treat them well.
Yeah,
so
it makes me also think from a liability standpoint, hey, I can go ahead and pay a little more for this on the front end versus having my guys have a heat stroke or heat exhaustion. Right. And now I've got them off work, and
that's right.
Now just make them comfortable from the get-go, right?
Yeah. I've told people this in oil companies, and trying to convince them is, look, the cost of good PPE is much cheaper than the cost of bad PPE. It's much cheaper because, you got guys. I designed the glove that had the best fingertip protection. It took me forever to do it on the tip of the finger, which I studied safety. I studied injury reports for years. And that was the number one cause of the hand injury. Hand injuries are the number one cause of oil field related injuries. And of those, the wide majority of them are cuts, are blows to the tips of the finger. And that type of thing, yeah, you may pay $1 or $2 extra for my glove, but that injury costs $60,000.
Yeah, and you're filing claims on that, and now your premium's going up.
And you got the insurance thing. The problem, Chris, is that when you go to an oil company or any company, I'm not picking on oil companies, and you say, look, this is the problem. The profit centers are different. Like the local guy isn't worried about the insurance cost. The insurance, that belongs to another employee. And then the cost of the downtime belongs to operations. And they're in different parts of the company, and nobody's putting it together. The biggest oil field service company in the world did a study, and they counted every single cost of an injury. And as an insurance guy, you'll appreciate this. They covered and that we're talking about, like you said, the premiums, these things, the cost of not having that guy producing for a while, right?
Yeah, I can't imagine.
That's a loss, right? And so this was 12 years ago. The cost of a recordable injury was $215,000. And that's what the cost was. That was 12 years ago. I mean, it's obviously gone up since then. So yeah, you want to prevent injuries. You want to give your guy comfortable stuff. So, comfortable protective stuff. I certainly put Sentinel together with that in mind. I'm trying to build the world's most comfortable stuff, the world's most protective / comfortable stuff you could possibly have. The safety world is coming up, and I'm leading the charge on that to develop things that are just better than what's out there.
Yeah, and for me, I'm thinking of this like, hey, these companies out here are already buying this stuff, Jeff. You already got this budgeted.
Yeah.
So why not at least take a look at some of these better materials?
Yeah, and it's like I said, like the guy said, you're competing for employees. You think they don't pay attention to things like this. You think that doesn't matter to them. You think they don't see it or value it. But when you spend some money on an employee and you get them some good equipment, they appreciate that.
Not to flip the script a little, but I'm an Aggie back here, and when you have good swag, these kids notice. If you have good swag at your company, people are going to notice. They're going to want to go work there.
It's funny you mentioned that, because that was part of the conversation, how most of the guys in the oil field are 35 and under, right? Well, these guys care about looks. They care about the brand. They care about brand, and they care about things that look cool, which is why they're making $80,000 a year and have a $100,000 car. I mean, it is what it is, but yeah, you're right. It's the swag works, as you can tell, with A&M swag, they're swagging into the #1 recruiting class in America. Congrats.
That's right.
That's awesome. I'm not a hater. I'm only a hater in joking. I love the poking back and forth on a fun level.
Sure.
But I love A&M. I hope they do end up winning the SEC in a title. It's about time, right? I mean, how many good teams? How many number 2 teams has A&M had and somehow lost to Texas Tech?
Yeah, it's I'm about tired of the saying for the Aggies. It's, we'll just wait till next year. Wait till next year.
I mean, it's got to be now, C-Dub. It's got to be now, man. Everything is in place. It's got to be now, and you're doing right when you got Nick Saban pissed off at you.
You're doing something right.
If he's paying attention to you, you're there. You're there, man. I mean, so good luck to you guys. I went to an Aggie game before. It is an incredible experience. I mean, these people are. I tell you the thing that of all the things, what do you call it?
Sawing varsity's horns off.
Yeah. No. Is that what that is? Okay, that was incredible. But man, the stadium, and I know it's changed since I went there, but boy, you get a little bit of vertigo. The stadium is so vertical, and you're walking down these stairs, and you're like, man, if I slip and fall, I might go 20 floors down before I get stopped. And, but yeah, I loved going to A&M. Like I told you offline, I've taken a couple of archaeology classes at A&M. The nautical archaeology school there is incredible, man. It was a great learning experience.
Yeah, well, your Red Raider friends that are listening, they're not going to like you loving on Texas A&M so much.
Oh, I love on everybody, man. I'm not. I found love to be better than hate in these last 10 years or so of my life. So I'd always respected A&M. Even in college, I was never one of these, like these. I'd call them just straight idiots who literally take this way too seriously. And
for sure,
it's fun to do the jabs and to do the poking, and that's all fun, and that's wonderful. But the people that really do hateful and wrong things, there's no place for them. And when I came to Texas, and people were saying, well, Texas Tech is, their fan base is horrible. They're the worst, blah, blah, blah. And I went, ooh, I just came from SEC country. I was like, Texas Tech would be in the bottom third in the SEC country as far as rude fan or, rowdy fan bases go. It's like, you need to go to, and I told him a story. I said, I saw a Georgia fan throw a milkshake in the face of a pregnant woman one time.
Oh my.
I mean, I'm not talking about sling it like in the movies, like throwing a glass of wine. I'm talking about this man took the whole thing and threw it at her as hard as he could. And we're sitting here going, did that really happen, man? And that's how serious,
yeah. One of my things I think about the differences in the SEC and some of the Big 12 football, if you will, is, Big 12 football, you're not going to get booed out of the stadium.
Mm-mm.
But you might get booed out of the stadium in the SEC.
Oh, dude, you might get fights. You might get punched. I mean, they don't care if you're with your wife and kids. I mean, it is, I've always wanted to go, and I will go to an Iron Bowl. I want to go to an Auburn, Alabama game. I've been to an LSU game, fortunately, and that isn't, again, there's no non-great experience in SEC football. If you can get yourself to a big SEC stadium for a night game, you're in for experience. I've been to obviously a few
night games are where it's at.
Oh, it's where it's at. Tennessee, unbelievable. UGA, obviously, fantastic. Even though I grew up a Yellow Jacket, I grew up a Yellow Jacket. I started the first time I pulled for Georgia was when, like I said, my buddy's son Miko started playing for Georgia. So I was like, this is like family, man. I got to pull for Georgia and pull for him, and then my dad was a Georgia Tech guy, and now also one of my best friends since elementary school is the team doctor for Georgia now.
Oh, that's got some extra connections there.
Oh man, he's a wonderful person, and it was he was so good of a person his whole life. He deserved his dream job, and he got it was always his dream job to be the team doctor for the University of Georgia. He assumed he might get it in his 50s. He got it at 34.
Wow.
Oh, he's
good for him.
Living the damn dream, man. Married to a wonderful, beautiful woman. Got a great. He's just that was karma. He was such a good person. He deserved that. And so, but yeah, SEC football is something to behold. And you got to get to it. And I think this year, is it Georgia? It's finally playing A&M, right?
I think this is the year, actually.
Yeah.
So it'll be fun. Which Georgia's had a couple of good recruiting classes, so it's not like Georgia sucks.
No,
So
the national championship last year.
yeah, no, it's like it's what happens when you get a #1 recruiting class. You got high expectations.
You got to win, and so I told my brother, and I think I'll check it when we get offline, but I think it's in Athens this year, and then next year it's in College Station. But whichever year it is, I told my brother, I said we're going to Aggie Land. We're going to go see that game because you need to see a big Texas thing as opposed to just the SEC or excuse me.
Yeah, and hopefully it's at night at Kyle Field, right?
Oh,
it doesn't get better than that.
It doesn't get better, man. I like,
that's the epitome of college football, right there.
It is, man. It's the you'll go as Georgia fans and not as a Texas Tech fan, so you won't get too much ribbing and you'll get the good old hospitality, right? So, and a lot of free food.
Hey, listen, Jeff, this has been great. I could talk football with you the whole time, but there's folks out there that want to get in touch with you. We'll attach your information, but who do you want to talk to? If this is your time to say, hey, if you're out there and you're so and so, I'd love to connect with you.
Well, this is crazy. I want to talk to anybody who's smart. I'm a learner. I don't need to be a customer. You don't need to be a potential customer of mine or me or yours. If you want to talk anything with me, I'm on LinkedIn. Contact me there. I think I gave my email address out and phone number out. Contact me. I love learning about people doing great things, and that doesn't mean just business. If you got a nonprofit going, you want to talk about that, I'll help you with that. I'll talk to you about that. If you're trying to accomplish something great in life and need some advice, if I'll talk to you about that. If you're going through depression and thinking about killing yourself, call me. I'll talk to you about that because I was there, and believe me, there is an end to that tunnel. And so, anybody that wants to talk to me, I'll talk to them, and I want to talk to everybody. So, but as far as business goes, anybody wearing worker clothing, if your company has that, give me a shot to put you in my stuff because I think you'll like it. I think you'll prefer it and love it to death. So yeah, give me a contact for that.
Awesome, Jeff. Well, like I said, this has been fun. Appreciate you joining the Know Me Network.
Thank you for having me, man. I appreciate it. Good luck.
Yeah, man. See you.